Section 1, Intro, the quote that shocked the world. Women are animals with long hair and short ideas. These words, penned by Arthur Schopenhauer, are among the most controversial statements ever made by a philosopher. They're offensive. They sting. They sound like the bitter ramblings of an angry man. And in today's world, they would likely get him canceled before he could ever explain himself. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Schopenhauer wasn't some online troll or attention seeker. He was one of the greatest minds of the 19th century, a philosopher who dedicated his life to peeling back the layers of human illusion to expose the raw, often painful, core of reality. This quote wasn't written in a fit of rage. It came from deep observation, heartbreak, and a life spent wrestling with the darker nature of human behavior, especially the dynamics between men and women. And while it may sound outdated, the emotions behind it are not. In fact, the very pain that fueled these words is alive and well in the hearts of countless men today. Because ask yourself, what could push a brilliant mind like Schopenhauer to such a damning conclusion about women? Was it just arrogance? Was it hatred? Or was it heartbreak that never healed? We're not here to excuse him. We're not here to defend bitterness or hatred. But we are here to do something far more dangerous, to understand. To ask why this wound exists, not just in a 19th century philosopher, but in modern men everywhere. To ask why so many men feel used, dismissed, forgotten, and replaced, even after giving their all. This video is not about Schopenhauer's opinion on women. It's about the emotional, philosophical, and biological battlefield that still exists between the masculine and the feminine. It's about the pain men often bury under silence. It's about the difference between being nice and being respected. It's about why so many men are waking up angry, confused, and tired of playing a game they never knew had rules. If you've ever loved deeply and lost painfully, if you've ever felt like no matter how kind, honest, or giving you are, it's never enough, then this video is for you. Because behind the quote that shocked the world, there's a truth most people are too afraid to confront. But we're not here to be comfortable. We're here to wake up. Section 2. Schopenhauer's Pain. The Origin of His Contempt. Arthur Schopenhauer wasn't born with contempt in his heart. He wasn't a natural cynic. He became one. Like countless men throughout history, his bitterness was not his origin story. It was the scar tissue that formed after repeated emotional wounds. At his core, Schopenhauer was a deeply sensitive man. He loved art, music, and animals. He sought truth with an almost spiritual intensity. He wasn't weak. He was wide open. And in that openness, he loved a woman deeply, with sincerity, devotion, and intellectual passion. But she didn't choose him. Not because he wasn't capable. Not because he wasn't worthy, but because, like many men discover too late, love doesn't always reward effort. He gave everything. And, in return, he was left with nothing. And that's where it begins. The moment a man realizes that his effort doesn't guarantee loyalty, that being kind doesn't guarantee love, that being loyal doesn't guarantee respect, that showing your heart might be the very thing that makes someone walk away. Sound familiar? Men are taught from childhood to be the nice guy, to open doors, to listen, to be soft when needed, strong when asked, and always available. But over time, something strange happens. These very traits, loyalty, gentleness, honesty, begin to feel like liabilities instead of the strengths. Because, despite doing everything right, many men watch the women they love leave. Leave for someone colder, someone tougher, someone who doesn't try as hard, someone who, in their eyes, did less, but was rewarded more. It feels like betrayal, but it's deeper than that. It's a fundamental shattering of a man's belief system. And for thinkers like Schopenhauer, this wasn't just personal, it became philosophical. He began to see a pattern where love seemed tied not to virtue, but to dominance, not to kindness, but to charisma, not to stability, but to emotional chaos and power dynamics. And instead of healing the wound, Schopenhauer did what many men do. He calcified. He turned the pain into armor, and the armor into ideology. But here's the tragedy. His contempt didn't start as hatred. It started as heartbreak. And what's more terrifying, it's a heartbreak that echoes through centuries into the hearts of men today. Because even now, in a world filled with self-help gurus and dating coaches, we still haven't answered one simple question. What is love really built on? If it's not kindness, if it's not loyalty, if it's not effort, then what is it? And here's the danger. If you're not ready for the truth, it will destroy your worldview. Because the real answer doesn't come with a fairy tale ending. It comes with fire. But through that fire comes clarity. Section 3. The Cold Truth. Love isn't what you think. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't believe in love as a divine force. He didn't see it as magical, sacred, or even emotional in the way poets and romantics describe. To him, what we call love was far more primal, less about soulmates, and more about survival. It was not the product of divine destiny, but of biological necessity, a trap laid by nature, disguised in feelings, designed to ensure the survival of the species. In his view, love is the mask that biology wears to keep the cycle going. He called it the will to life, a powerful, invisible force compelling us to reproduce. Nature doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your heartbreak. What it cares about is life continuing, and love in this framework is simply evolution's way of manipulating humans into partnering, mating, and producing offspring, regardless of whether the relationship is truly fulfilling or even sustainable. According to this lens, men and women are drawn to each other based not on virtue or compatibility, but on deep-seated biological criteria. Men are naturally wired to seek out youth, beauty, and signs of fertility, qualities that signal reproductive potential. Meanwhile, women are biologically programmed to seek out strength, stability, and leadership, traits that suggest a man can protect, provide, and improve her and her children's chances of survival. This concept isn't new, but Schopenhauer articulated it with brutal honesty. Women, he argued, don't just fall for the nice guy. Evolutionarily speaking, they are drawn to what's known as hypergamy, the instinct to mate upward. That means choosing a man who is not just attractive or kind, but one who offers a higher status, more resources, and better survival odds than her current or previous options. This drive is ancient. It's wired into the female psyche, often operating far below conscious awareness, and this is where the modern man is caught off guard. He believes that being emotionally available, generous, and supportive will make him irreplaceable. He invests in love with his time, his heart, and his resources, assuming loyalty will be his reward. But love doesn't always operate on fairness. It operates on utility, often brutal, sometimes invisible times. When a man stops growing, stops leading, or begins to show emotional instability, many women, consciously or unconsciously, start scanning the horizon for someone more secure, more powerful, more confident. Not necessarily someone better for love, but someone better for survival. And in a world where success is status, confidence is currency, and dominance is rewarded, the man who no longer fits that mold often finds himself quietly replaced. It's not because he's bad. It's not because he didn't try. It's because in the cold, evolutionary game of life, usefulness matters more than effort. Nature doesn't care how much you love someone. Nature only asks, are you strong enough to carry the next generation forward? Most men have no idea they are even playing this game until they lose. Until the woman who once adored them begins to withdraw. Until the love they thought was unconditional begins to fade. Until the one they gave everything to quietly chooses someone else. And when that moment comes, it feels like betrayal. But through Schopenhauer's eyes, it's not betrayal, it's biology. That's the cold truth. And if you refuse to see it, if you cling to romantic fantasies, you set yourself up for disillusionment. Schopenhauer's warning wasn't meant to strip love of its meaning. It was meant to reveal the machinery beneath the emotion, to see it clearly, to stop being a victim of it, and to start making decisions from strength, not illusion. Section 4. Modern Reflection. The game has changed, but the rules have not. While society has evolved dramatically since Schopenhauer's time, the underlying dynamics between men and women, especially in the realm of attraction, remain shockingly consistent. We live in an age of smartphones, dating apps, self-help books, and progressive values. Yet the same silent instincts continue to shape our relationships. The players have changed costumes, but the rules of the game remain written in stone. Modern men are taught that gender roles are outdated, that equality in relationships means emotional openness will always be rewarded, and that being kind, vulnerable, and understanding will lead to lasting love. They are told that masculinity is toxic, dominance is controlling, and ambition should take a back seat to empathy. And while these values sound noble in theory, in practice, many men find themselves punished, not praised, for embodying them too fully. Because underneath the surface, biology hasn't caught up to the ideal. Women may say they want a soft, sensitive man, but their bodies and instincts still respond most powerfully to strength, direction, and confidence. A man who leads, not aggressively, but with certainty. A man who protects, not out of fear, but out of power. A man who stands for something, not someone who folds to everything. This creates a harsh paradox for modern men. They're expected to be emotionally available without being needy, strong but not controlling, ambitious but never too dominant. And the moment they slip too far into softness, they're often met with coldness, disrespect, or even abandonment. The very qualities they were told would win her heart become the reason she loses interest. It's no wonder so many men feel confused, lost, and even betrayed. They followed the rule book, only to realize the rules were a lie, or worse, only half the truth. And here's the deeper issue. Many men don't just suffer because they're rejected. They suffer because they never even knew why. No one told them they were being evaluated for their strength, their leadership, and their purpose. No one warned them that when they stopped growing, when they became passive or indecisive, they would lose not only the relationship, but their own identity. Schopenhauer, in all his before, because once you understand the rules, once you stop pretending the game doesn't exist, you can start to play it with your eyes open. You can stop resenting women for following their instincts. You can stop blaming yourself for not being good enough. And, most importantly, you can start becoming the kind of man who leads not from pain or bitterness, but from power, clarity, and purpose. Section 5. Conclusion. The real lesson from Schopenhauer. The real. Arthur Schopenhauer dared to speak a truth that many feared to even consider, that love, in its rawest form, may not be the fairy tale we were told, but a carefully disguised biological exchange, a silent negotiation driven by evolutionary necessity rather than spiritual destiny. This idea wasn't born from arrogance. It was born from suffering. Behind his cutting words was a man who once longed for connection, who once believed in romance, who once reached for love with open hands, and came back with nothing. He was not just a pessimist, he was a man scorched by reality. And that burn left a mark. In time, his intellect became his armor. His words became weapons. He no longer reached for love, he dissected it. He no longer sought understanding, he judged from a distance. Schopenhauer turned his back on the very thing he once desired, not because he was heartless, but because his heart was never allowed to fully heal. He chose to preserve his pride over opening himself to pain again. And while there is wisdom in his observations, there is also warning in his outcome. Because the tragedy of Schopenhauer isn't just what he believed about women or love, it's what that belief turned him into, A man remembered for his mind, but forgotten by those who mattered most. A man whose bitterness outlived his tenderness. He gained insight, but lost intimacy. And that is a trade no man should make. But here's the truth. You don't have to become that. You don't have to let one betrayal poison every relationship. You don't have to let one rejection define your worth. You don't have to wear your wounds as a crown of cynicism. There is another path, one that leads not to bitterness, but to brilliance, one that does not glorify pain, but transforms it. You may be hurt, you may be tired, you may be standing in the ashes of what was once love. But this is where your power begins, not when you suppress the pain, but when you confront it. When you stop asking why it happened to you and start asking what it came to teach you. Because pain is a messenger, rejection is redirection, and loneliness can become the birthplace of legacy if you let it. Every man watching this knows what it feels like to be invisible to the one he would do anything for, to be overlooked in favor of someone louder, stronger, or more aloof, to give deeply, quietly, and faithfully, only to be replaced without a second thought. That kind of pain doesn't just sting, it changes you, but you must choose how it changes you. Let it harden your standards, not your spirit. Let it push you to value yourself so highly that you no longer tolerate being undervalued. Let it force you to build a life so disciplined, so intentional, so purpose-driven, that your presence becomes a privilege, not something that can be taken lightly. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about stepping into the kind of manhood that doesn't waver when love walks away. A manhood rooted in mastery, not need. In direction, not desperation. Because the men who are most respected in life are not those who beg for validation. They are the ones who carry themselves with quiet certainty, knowing that their worth isn't based on who chooses them, but on who they choose to become. Get stronger. Get clearer. Get more focused than ever before. Build your world so well that when someone enters it, they feel elevated just by being near you. Don't chase what's fleeing. Don't explain what should already be understood. Don't mourn the loss of people who couldn't recognize your value. And remember, the highest form of love is not being chosen. It's choosing yourself when no one else does. That is not ego. That is awakening. Because in the end, true love isn't a chase. It's a mirror. It finds you when you've found yourself, and true power isn't being needed by others. It's standing strong when you finally realize you don't need them. That's not heartbreak. That's freedom.